Hey Cancer, what's going on? This reading is going to be about what you need to know for September. The first card that we have is Eight of Cups. Eight of Cups is feeling like a recognition that something is not really working for you anymore. You can feel disconnected from something, or you can feel unhappy. It looks like this is also paired with some disappointment. So what can be going on with this? This can be one of those times when you feel like something is not working out the way that it is. Having Five of Cups can be feeling upset about that even being a thing in the first place. Like, I want this to work, but it's not working, and so I'm feeling like this about it. Feels like the Five of Cups is sort of like spawning off of the Eight of Cups. So there can just be like a disappointment basically about how something is unfolding. I'm not seeing you be in denial of it. It feels more so like I'm sad that this is what it is, or I'm sad that this is how it is. I feel like this is also reflective of like you wanting something to work out. Like I wish that this was working. I wish that this was resonating. I wish that I was getting what I needed. I didn't want it not to work out. So how you're feeling is normal. Five of Cups is sort of like this, I'm grieving, I'm mourning. In my head, like this was gonna work out, or at least I wanted it to. And because it isn't, now I'm sort of dealing with accepting that. And that is the feeling. I'm seeing Two of Swords wanting to come out. Maybe there's something that you haven't totally wrapped your head around. I am seeing the Empress. A shift for you dynamically. This can also be a relationship shift too. Having the Empress and having the Death card. Empress feels like what has come to fruition. Death card feels like, okay, now it's time for seasons to change. The way that I'm seeing this Empress card, it feels like the leaves have grown like as much as they can, and now the Death card comes through and it's like fall and everything's gonna fall off of here now. So this does feel like something fully grew or like reached or met its potential, and now the Death card is like, okay, time for the next cycle to happen, and it feels like all of the leaves are gonna drop off. So a changing of seasons, this feels like. What this means too is that you can look at this and feel like, as the Empress, I gave my best. I gave what I could. There's nothing more that I could give, because this Empress card is feeling like everything grew like to capacity, and this feels like a reflection of you. Even though you can be feeling sad about this, you can be feeling upset about it, you can feel like how I feel about myself and how I showed up through that was the best I possibly could. So it does feel like that's also part of things too. Knowing that you like gave it all you got. What that means is that you can look at a situation and feel like there's no more like growing that can happen within this. There's no more expansion. Like there's not really anything more that I can give to this. That's also met its capacity as well. That's the feeling that I get from this. Empress is feeling like you have explored the total potential of this situation. And now the Death card says, okay, and now it's time for the next thing, and that's why the season is changing. You may not want that to be the case. You could have wished that this would last longer. However, it feels like this is pretty clear for the most part. And now it's time for you to follow your heart. Wherever that leads you next. Okay, what I'm seeing is that you do have the option, even though I'm seeing 8 of Cups here, which feels like an acknowledgement of that's all there is, like the curtain going down. Having strength feels like you may have the option to stay within this, even though you know like the curtain has closed, or you can carry on through. But in order to carry on through, you can know that you have to accept that feeling of change, go through the grieving process, allows something to be released. So there can be a part of you that if you are so resistant to this inevitable releasing of the situation, you may be able to stay in this actually, even though it's not where you're meant to be anymore. But it does feel like you have the choice of, I can stay in this thing that I know is like over with now, if I want to avoid having to go through the process of releasing this. It's not suggested that you do it, but it does feel like it's an option. That it really is time for things to turn over. And it looks like what you want most of all is to acknowledge that and let that be. Yeah, the part of you that's more so just attached to something, even if it's like not the vibe for you anymore, you're working with that part of yourself. Because there can be a part of you that chooses safety that you feel in something, even though it may not resonate with you anymore. Well, it doesn't. It's not something that's going to be fulfilling for you anymore. So even though something may not be the thing for you anymore, there can be a part of you that you're like working with the part of yourself that may still choose that over recognizing that something is complete. It does feel like that's the part of you that you're working with here. It's the emotional part of you, and the part of you that may resist letting something go. The part of you that may resist having to mourn this, having to grieve this, having to release this, having to make the transition. So I'm definitely seeing that come up here. It does feel like what may not be seen right now is that something has fully come to fruition. Like there's nothing more that you're meant to be doing there. That you are meant for the next changing of seasons. Yeah, for some of you, I get this feeling of thinking, like, my work here is not done, or like, I'm still supposed to be putting my energy into this, but it feels like everything is cluing you in on that not being the case, that you're meant to move forward with this. But yeah, there can be a part of you that almost like doesn't want to acknowledge that. Just because of the attachment, that's where it comes from. But you know that you have this feeling. That's the only thing. So for those of you that you're like, what do I do here? I don't know what my intuition is telling me. Is that this situation is done. But you can still stay within it if you want to, but it's not going to be what you're looking for it to be, because it has already essentially climaxed. It's like looking at a plant that has already gone into full bloom, and it did, and it was like very beautiful when it went into full bloom. And also too, like the plant doesn't stay in full bloom, it has to go into the next season, and that's basically what's happening. But you may be having a hard time recognizing that that's just like the cycle here, like the cycle of life, the cycle of energy. And there can be a part of you that's like having a hard time accepting that. You may even like not want to look at it, even though that is the case. And like you're meant to be definitely moving forward with things, because then like the next bloom is going to be coming through, but you have to like basically shift into the next plant in order for that to happen, shift into the next cycle. And it will, like, things will come back around again, but on your sort of next trail. Yeah, this feels like something that only blooms once, being like, it'll bloom again, and it's like, it already did its big one here, it's not going to do it again, and that's why you're being pushed to the next thing. But yeah, there can be a part of you that maybe you feel really intimidated by going through the process of releasing something to go into the next cycle. Like, maybe you really like to avoid endings here. I'm seeing strength and I'm seeing death, and both of these energies are fixed signs here. I'm also seeing Venus. We can have Leo Venus, Scorpio Venus. It doesn't only have to be those placements, but those are being highlighted. And what this can mean, Leo Venus, as that is fixed fire, it's wanting to sort of like stoke the fire and keep that going and not have to like bring your heart into a different place or like go through a transition. Like, I want to stay in this place. I don't want it to change, even though Eight of Cups tells you a different story. And it is about really tuning in and listening. And then having the Death card, which is a fixed water, it can be like, I don't want to release this. I don't want to let it go. I don't want to learn to like something else, you know? I don't want to have to connect with anything else. I want to only connect with this, even though it's like a weak connection now because something isn't in resonance any longer. And Page of Cups is that part of you that's coming through saying like, hey, the path continues. Let's go over here where stuff is really flowing. It's kind of like Page of Cups is going to be a vast river that's really flowing that you can put yourself on the path of, but you're going to have to sort of switch lanes here in order to do that. I'm hearing Stony Brook, or you can stay within something that is the Eight of Cups that will feel like a little trickle that you don't really get what you need from it, and then you start feeling emotionally and energetically dehydrated, like it's not something that's sustainable because you're not getting what you need from it, and then you feel like start feeling disconnected from things by staying within it. I get a little bit of a stubborn energy here just because of having a hard time saying goodbye. It can be something that you like want to go back into something, but it's just going to keep doing the same thing because it's not in resonance anymore. But you do have the choice here. I will say that there's a clear choice about what's going to be more enjoyable long term for you versus what may be like, I'm avoiding having to do that so I can stay within this and not have to make the change, and you will not find what you're looking for within that, but you do get to make a choice here. But it can be something that you're feeling resistant. I'm resistant to doing. I'm seeing Temperance on the bottom of the deck. This feels like give yourself some time. Just give yourself some time here. You don't need to make a major decision yet. It feels like this is something that's being confronted, like just the truth of what's going on here for you. And when you step towards the Death card, which is going to be essentially a portal that you step into, that is the moment where the most resonant path merges with where you are versus avoiding the Death card and still trying to squeeze water from a rock. That's not going to come out. And that ultimately be the choice that you have here. Feels like definitely a difficult thing to do. You can be having a hard time sort of admitting this to yourself just because of not wanting to let go. But this is ultimately what's up here with this. Yeah, Stony Brook is coming through again. I don't know what that is. Maybe a place. Sounds like a company or something. Or like a farm, maybe. Anyway. Yeah. I wonder if like towards the end of September or maybe even in November, at that point a choice is going to be made. Most of this can just be spending time through September digesting this. But definitely looks like a big shift is going to be coming up for you eventually if you go that way. it feels like one of those times where you may not want to move forward, but the only path, like the only way through is forward, and you sort of have to. Otherwise, you're going to feel like endlessly dissatisfied or displeased or disconnected. But it can be really difficult to come to terms with that. All right, my friends, we are going to leave the reading here. I would like to thank everyone for connecting. Thank you for tuning in. I am sending everybody love, and I hope to catch you guys next time.